my absolute worst real estate deal. There's always one that you do that sticks in your head. You just can't get it out. Sometimes, I mean, when you're in the middle of it, it keeps you up or wakes you up in the middle of the night and you think, my God, what am I gonna do? So let me tell you this story. I had a listing. It was a double wide trailer. It had been very well kept. Young family was living in there. They had a small child. They were traveling professionals, so they worked all over the country, and they just decided they were going to get themselves an RV, sell the home, live wherever they found work, and they were going to raise their child on the road, have a nice life. And it was really kind of an interesting idea, and they wanted to sell the trailer to be able to do that. So I took the listing and did the usual stuff, advertised it, people came and look at it, but we didn't get any offers until one day I had this other couple with a 3-year-old son who wanted to look at it. And I said, well, this is my listing. So they did. And the thing you have to understand, let me back up a little bit here. The thing you have to understand in this business is we can have listing agreements to sell, and we can have buyer representation agreements to work with buyers, okay? If they look at your listing and both sets, buyers and sellers, are clients, you have to then have a discussion with both parties and explain what's going on, get everybody to sign a piece of paper that says we're aware of this and we're okay with it. They were okay with what we call dual agency or dual representation. I represent both sides. I don't like it. Now, there's a common misperception within this profession that, at least a common misperception, let me say, among the general public, some of the general public, that this is all we want to do is take both sides because we get all the money. And I'm here to tell you, the vast majority of the agents that I work with do not like being in this situation because it is a headache. It's an inherent conflict of interest. You have to tread lightly. You've got to be very careful about what you say and what you don't say because you can't share information that you know about either party with the others. Okay? And you have to be careful what you advise because you know what this side is willing to do and not do, and same with this other side. So when it comes to dual representation, if they're not already clients, I just don't do it. And a lot of other agents just don't do it either. But occasionally, and it's rare, but occasionally I have the situation where you've got a listing, you've got a buyer that you've signed up who's been looking at all other stuff, and all of a sudden they come together and you're stuck, okay? Unless you can get one party to say, oh, we'll go with someone else. But in this particular case, both parties said, we're fine with it, we're comfortable, and so on and so forth. So now I have a couple that's been qualified, young child. It was tough to get them a loan, but they did qualify, and we were all set to go to closing. One other thing I need to tell you about with this couple that was buying is they were under the gun to either renew their lease because they were renting somewhere or move in early. And the sellers said, yeah, they were fine with that since we're going to close in about a month. They would have let them move in early, and then we'd go to closing, and then the property would change hands and everybody would be happier. What happened was that after they moved in, 2 weeks from closing, the husband of the buyer couple takes off with all the money. He empties out the bank account and leaves the state. He didn't show up. Nobody knew where he was for about a week. He'd gone home to his family and didn't want to be married anymore or whatever. I mean, you hear about these things, they don't make a whole lot of sense, but there it is. So anyway, now I've got this situation of, here's my listing. It was supposed to go to closing, was not going to because now all of a sudden the wife doesn't have the down payment money to close on the place. What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? We're stuck here, they're in there, got no way to close. You know, she can't qualify for a loan by herself. This is where, you know, when you get adversity and people step up and you get really, really surprised. So her dad, who was babysitting the son, the 3-year-old, while she was at work during the day, said, hey, I've got some acreage that we can sell. I'm willing to help my daughter with this, whatever it takes, just tell me what I have to do. So I had to go back to my clients because they're the sellers. They're the ones that I was representing as well to, you know, get rid of this so that they could then go, you know, have the life that they wanted to have. And I had to keep them reassured throughout this whole process. When the father stepped up, he said he had some acreage. It was in a good location. We had to get it listed. I mean, all this stuff takes time, but we're under the gun here. So the idea was that we get it listed, find a buyer for it, get it sold, and then he would have the funds, and then Dad would qualify to purchase the double wide trailer for his daughter and grandson and himself, because he had nowhere else to move to either. Get that purchased so that this problem could be taken care of. So anyway, we listed it, came up a little bit short. So he was still going to have to get a mortgage, but it was, at the time, I think the minimum mortgage was $50,000. He only needed maybe 20 to, close the belt on this deal. So he qualified easily for $50,000, especially with the cash that he had from the sale of the land. Everything's great until it came time for all the paperwork for his loan application. He needed 2 years worth of IRS tax returns to support his income, because he would have to make payments, and you have to have evidence showing that. Anyway, these are all details on these kinds of loans, but he didn't have that. Here's where the story really gets heart-wrenching. He had not filed his last 2 years' tax returns because 3 years prior he had lost his wife and his older daughter to cancer. They both had separate, it's not like it's a contagious thing, but they both came down with cancer and died, and he just went into this deep, dark depression and wanted to do nothing until his 3-year-old grandson came along and he had to help babysit, and that kind of brought the guy back. But again, we're trying to get a mortgage so we can buy this trailer so he and his daughter and his grandson can have a place to live, and I can get my clients paid off. So he hadn't done his tax returns. I said, okay, well, what can I do here? So I called my own tax accountant and I said, Jeff, here's the situation. Explained it to him. He said, Tom, have him bring all this stuff in. Jeff, make a long story short, Jeff put together the returns and said, here. And I said, okay, how long will it take to process this? He says, it's got to go to the IRS and come back. The mortgage company needed to know that they had been filed and been processed by the IRS and all that. Well, how long is this going to take? Well, it could be as short as 2 months. I said, as short as? How long could it take? He said, well, it could take as much as 6 months. I said, we don't have that kind of time. And he said, all right, here's what you do then. You go down to Richmond to the IRS office and tell me you want to file an expedited return. So that's what we did. I grabbed my client, the dad now, and we drove down to the IRS office in Richmond and we filed the expedited returns, got them back just in enough time to still qualify for the mortgage and get this thing to go through and go to closing. So on the one hand, the absolute worst deal, because I had buyers in a house which all of a sudden they could no longer buy. So they're tenants, squatters even, whatever. But I want to help them get this, and I want to help my seller clients get the money for the house that they were trying to sell because they put their trust in me. So now you got all the details. It was the absolute worst. Did I make a whole lot on it because I double-ended the deal? It was not worth it from a financial standpoint, but from the standpoint of just being in a position where I could help a family where the husband had run out and it was a broken situation and they had no roof over their heads, but to make things go right and to be in a position to help with that, it is probably one of the best deals I've ever done, and that's why I do real estate. So I hope you enjoyed this story, and I hope you're never in a situation like this, but if you get into a situation with real estate, whether you're buying, selling, or not doing anything, but you're having a problem, we deal in solving problems, finding solutions for people. And that's what makes me feel good. That's why I get up in the morning, and that's why I do this job. So thanks for listening to my story, and hope you'll be back for the next one. Until then, take care, have a nice day. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons, and we'll see you later.